This is Clayton Howe's Entertainment X. For part 2 with Timm Chiusano, we continue the conversation on burnout, a common piece of incorrect advice and his billboard quote. So I hope you enjoy this part 2 with Timm Chiusano. Your day is so full. Do you burn out? How do you avoid the burnout? And if you do burn out, what do you do?
I have burned out in the past, but it wasn't when I was doing this.
Okay.
Usually, if there's anything burnout related these days, it's more tied to I don't feel like I'm doing. I wish I had more time. Is really what it comes back to, right? Because now I'm getting opportunity. Now I'm having discussions about, how do I get a podcast going? Like, how do I do more long form content? People are setting up websites for me so that I can do longer form content around the one sheets that I've created for career development stuff. And it's always like, if I just, literally there are very few hard rules in my house that need to be like pushed on me, but one is you are getting your ass to bed before 10 o'clock. And it's going to be, and there's a hard push to make that happen at 9:30, just because, the I think long term 4 hours plus. I've done that for a while and it was not fun. There was a streak there where I wasn't going to bed until like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. That was unsustainable. And so really there hasn't been burnout in a long time for all the stuff. If nothing else, I get down on myself because I feel like if I just had more time, I would be able to do more, because the ideas are like spilling out of my ears at this point, for better or worse. And but I don't burn out because of appreciation. Sounds cheesy, probably to hear, cheesy to say to a certain extent, but it's like, this is a gift. This conversation with you is a gift, right? You flew in out of the clear blue sky, offered the conversation. I said immediately yes, basically, or as soon as I saw it, just because who knows, right? Yeah. But you took the time to ask me the question, and you also were able to adjust to my schedule. You're able to fit based on what I was able to say, hey, this is what I've got. And it allows me to be super present. Like, I don't think I've been able to be this present this consistently ever as I have, especially since things started to really start to snowball. And what I equate that to is understanding the appreciation for every single micro moment throughout the course of a day. And obviously nothing is given. Certainly losing one of my closest friends since third grade over the summer, plays a factor into that, but it wasn't like I wasn't already thinking along these lines before then. That just was another, for worse, was another kind of like, etched in the stone relative to this general mindset. Part of that's because of, seeing my parents go through cancer multiple times. Part of that is just based off of my, literally what I would call my dumbass perspective on life of like, oh, that's cool. And I can basically say, oh, that's cool about like everything underneath the sun. Because who am I to take sewage for granted? Who am I to think that, oh, it's not remarkable that water comes out of my faucet whenever I want it to, right? Like, I just have that kind of general mindset where it's very easy. So you start to layer things on, and how my career has progressed, even though I'm happy to say that I'm 1,000% worked my ass off for absolutely everything that I have been able to do over the course of my career. In fact, it probably overperformed or overachieved based on the fact that my education background is not exactly stellar, to say the least. But that's also allowed me to have a deeper sense of self-awareness too, because I see all these things and I can appreciate all of these things. And then I can appreciate the what, the where, the how, the why behind it. And unless I can specifically bring a better idea or example to the table for whatever that is, I will not, whenever humanly possible, not allow myself to think in a derogatory, negative, or even anything below appreciation level for everything out there. And it's just a super fun way to live. you can call it a stoner mentality to a certain extent, because it's like, oh wow, man, like that's cool.
Yeah.
And it's like I use that analogy because I've been trying. You don't think about, these are questions that you don't usually contemplate on your own unless you're a host for a show, or unless you're somebody that for some reason starts to get them and getting them at scale.
Mm.
So a lot of these things, I'm like, I don't know. It's like, how do you give me directions to get home at night? You kind of pause for a second, right? You're like,
Mm.
oh, these are things that are so natural to just me going from point A to point B that I don't really think about some of the really specific elements that I might need to instruct to somebody else. But I am able to keep burnout at bay because I just feel like I'm making the most of these opportunities. And if nothing else, there's not burnout, there is just a sense of longing for more time to be able to do more things. So when I think about leaving making content, which it crosses my mind all of the time because there is so much going on, I just keep coming back to just do one more. And it's not, and I don't have those thoughts because I'm burning out from it. If nothing else, it feels like I want to remove myself from the abstract dream that something is building within this. So like, let me just go back to my normal life, quote unquote.
Mm.
Because if I don't have more time to do these things, like what am I doing, and should I be reinvesting it somewhere else? But I don't know, it's probably a much longer winded answer than you might have been expecting, but roll all that up. And then where I don't have answers to the questions, which I often don't, I just tell myself, just do one more. You don't have to figure it all out right now. And that's what I also try to pass along to those that are younger. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the hell is going to happen next. There's not a broader strategy within all this. We're like, 3-year goal is to, well, I mean, I certainly have thoughts and visions, but um, I just gotta try to get a little bit better the next day and try to enjoy it as much as I can the next day. Make one more TikTok, be present in that next meeting. And aside from, long range planning, corporate America, fiscal P&L responsibilities, I don't look too far down the road to try to have it all sorted out. And that fuel helps me get up every day at that time and be like, cool, we get to do this again.
Mm. Thank you for diving so deep on that. I have 3 questions left and we're going to wrap it up here. One,
Yeah.
how has your gut instinct evolved or gotten better with all of this gratitude and being present?
Man, you've got some amazing questions. Um,
Thank you.
there is it's patience. It's the ability to take a deep breath before just having like some sort of it's like the reaction state slows down, but for the right reasons.
Mm.
It's not I just have to fix and go and do. It is, let me, how can I allow the fact that, there is broader perspective over time? How do I take a moment to just let that soak in and then let the gut take over, so to speak?
Mm.
And then you can kind of balance the two. So it's almost like a fuel tank, I would be shocked if you don't, have I don't know how old you are, but I have a sense we're, probably ballpark same-ish age, right? And you do notice over time that there's a broader set of tools that you have that can help the gut in those moments. And it's just really a matter of actual patience and being able to like let that hit you in the right places at the right time. I have this star analogy for your own emotions, where it's like, if your mindset is a 5-point star of your, sadness, how happy you could be, pick some general senses like that. And in a moment where something happens and you can kind of ping to the most extreme examples of those, you'll recalibrate yourself in the center super quick. But I think that comes with time. So I think it's the understanding of, my reaction to this should be based off of the fact that the saddest point in my life was here. Therefore, I am not there. So let me then equate that to all of these extremes and then kind of wind up in the middle. And I think that's some dojo mental shit, pardon the language, that with time, if you can appreciate and extract from that, then you can become like, your gut instinct becomes pretty solid. Still be a dumbass at the core, but it can be pretty solid.
But spot on, but a dumbass, but spot on.
Yeah,
Is there
exactly.
is there a common piece of incorrect advice that you've been hearing as an executive in life through TikTok?
Oh God, there's so much of it out there. I grappled with it a lot in not wanting to like go, to try to take it on piece by piece, where like I saw these things about, this is how you ask for a raise, this is how you negotiate a salary, like this is how you do all of these things. And it's like you can't explain in a 30-second pithy little piece of content how to handle one of those conversations well. Right. So I would say that it is unfortunately ongoing in this race to just attract attention versus just because the platform is short form doesn't mean that you can actually put something in there that is, look, people have definitely put in some words of wisdom into short form content pieces on those topics, and it's been useful. But in large part, I've seen things from like, there's not enough context. Somebody takes this, and even if they got 90% of that right, the 10% that they could get wrong, A, 100% of that wasn't right to begin with. B, imagine that they're even off by 10% based off of what was already, a bit flawed at its core. Then you're even further off, and then somebody's going to be like, well, I don't know. Then you're going to get even more frustrated after the fact. They're like, well, that didn't work, but I followed the instructions and it was based off of this. And it's just going to kind of like further fuel somebody's perspective in a much broader sense. So, unfortunately, I think that there's just a lot of misguided advice out there that in some cases is just being done for the sake of like, check out my stuff versus like people wanting to seek it out. I think the one thing I'll say to that is it's all defendable relative to like anybody out there that's just watching things can defend themselves against it if they assume that nobody's right, myself included. Nobody has it figured out, but you can take probably a little tiny piece of everybody's stuff, the smartest human being in the world next to the not so smartest human being in the world, and if you even just took a little pinch of each of what they're saying and you kind of make it your own, then you're going to kind of find your way. So there probably isn't something that there's a lot of bad stuff out there, but if you take it all with a grain of salt and you just kind of make your own potpourri, then you'll be fine.
Metaphorically speaking, if you could put a word or a phrase on a billboard for millions of people to see, does anything come to mind?
Appreciate being. I don't know if that answers the question directly from a metaphor perspective, but appreciate being. It's something that I saw on the subway right before. I love that. Really, really, really difficult time this year. Again, going back to losing my friend, and it felt like it was intentionally there for me to see that day, even though I don't really believe in that kind of like stuff, quote unquote. But I think the simplicity of the two words, what they mean combined, what they mean as individuals, and then if you actually let that soak in and kept that in mind, then you're going to be more present in all of your micro interactions are going to lead to better days holistically, because you're just going to be in a moment and not necessarily be kind of lost in the cluster of modern society, for better or worse, that can kind of, ping pong you all over the place.
Well, Timm, I appreciate you being on this show. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. This was an amazing conversation. I can't believe how much you were able to jam in there. That was great. Thank you.
You've been listening to Entertainment X, the podcast. You can follow Entertainment X on Instagram at _EntertainmentX_. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join Clay next week for another curiosity conversation on Entertainment X. Thank you for listening.